their encampment soaked. Maybe there were heavy rains the night before, or they know that nearby, down deep in this valley, that at a certain time and place during the season, the rains and the floods come. Or maybe, just maybe, it's a little bit more arcane, a region that is completely devoid of light and life. But on this particular day, this day, the day of the flood, it's a day to remember. Guys, get your top off with your mind fuel. Get the gears flowing in the head, because today, on this instance, we're going to talk about the day of the flood. Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ. And as we continue along this series on the day of, today is the day of the flood. And we have far too many real life examples of this. And I would dare say, even there are regions around the world where, you know, flooding is a pretty common event. I see Dead Man's got a little bit of a, yeah, I see it. Yeah, and a little bit of a side here in the fandom talking about the flood. I was just like, what? Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, the flood, a fictional parasitic alien life form, one of the primary antagonists in a Halo multimedia franchise. Yeah, which of course we can absolutely, we can steal that, because what are we here? We're here to discuss and come up with great ideas for our tabletop role playing games. And today, like any other, is of course a day where you get to steal these ideas and use them for your game. So, on today, the day of the flood, this could very well be, um, dare I say, a mundane type of prompt, meaning that the day of the flood could have very easily been predicted, um, days, weeks, months. Maybe this is a yearly event, and the player characters must travel from A to B, and to get across this region, they know they're going to come across where this region is, well, basically flooded. And of course, you can foreshadow this many times. Maybe there's some kind of um, uh, there's a farmer's almanac type of thing. A druid's circle absolutely warns people that live in the larger regions. Hey, listen, we're going to get some rain, and this is the day we predict. This could be a specific day of every year where the floods just come and everyone tries to escape the region, or batten down the hatches before the day comes. But and this also elicits something in me, because I'm a person who loves the environment and exploration and such. And I think too often we don't incorporate a number of natural environmental catastrophes and weather events into our role playing games, simply because without having a need to use magic, these are great obstacles for our players to have to navigate around. So, on the day of the flood, on this particular prompt with the day of the flood, we can. I think there's a lot of story elements we can pull from this. Yeah. Oh no, yeah, yeah. I don't know if it's the largest flop, but it's close to it. Yeah, the End King mentions, yeah, dibs on playing Kevin Costner. For those who don't know, there is a movie called Waterworld, and if I'm not mistaken, it's like probably one of the top 5, top 10 movie flops, and it just went way over budget. And it's a movie about where the entire world is flooded. They need to find this mythological um, safe land, and I believe it's like the top of the like Himalayas or something like that, or Mount Everest or whatever is the only like land in the rest of the world. And you, of course, yeah, and you end up finding out that there are, I guess we would, human beings are going to eventually adapt to living in a totally aquatic world or whatever. Um, but on the day of the flood, I think what's great about this is it depends on how you come at it. Is it is there a flood or is it flooding? And you can kind of mix and match both of those. For example, um, on the day of the flood, maybe it's predicted like the Druids are like, hey, listen, you guys have been damming up rivers and putting in levees and living down in this valley because of some, I don't know, trying to extract some kind of resource. And but of course, by doing that, damming up rivers and all that kind of stuff and diverting rivers and things, maybe the Druids are like, we're done with you. Today, the day of the flood, yeah, this isn't something on a map. We warned you, and today's the day. And then maybe they use their special powers or something, and they release the dams and the levees and make it just flood the area. And of course, there's going to be innocent people there, people who don't want to move. So much like this thumbnail with families trudging through um, knee deep waters and things of that nature, players might need to watch out for these individuals might be the MacGuffins themselves. They have to protect innocence, and of course the PCs can beat ass and stuff. But when they how do they do that and also protect innocent people trying to escape the flood? Is this a an ecological disaster, right? Like, is the flooding happening because of things that people have been doing, abusing the environment? Is this a terrorist activity from druids to flood a region to get rid of all humanity that's trying to expand and grow this I don't know, town on the dock of the bay or something, anything like that. But this could also just very well be a normal thing. Maybe the players come across a town, and for some strange reason, there are boats of all sizes sitting on the rooftops. And the players may say, like, why did they do that? Maybe, and of course, as players start to try to think about what's going on, maybe they think, oh, th- these were sailors back in the day, and it's kind of like a shout out to, it's an honor to the navigators in the large oceans or rivers or whatever, and that's why they have boats on the rooftops. And they're like, no, or maybe a lot of the buildings are on stilts, and despite the fact that the players might be walking on solid ground, all the buildings are very tall, and I mean, held up on stilts. You can almost walk underneath all of them, and there are walkways and such. There may be a number of these of um, foreshadowing that this might be an event. It could also be that the I'm trying to think of um, there's an event that happens every year where there's a region in the world where it's extremely dry, and only once a year does do the floodwaters come in, and animals from all over rush into the region, because only once a year does the water come. And it's possible this could be a very extremely dry region, barren, not necessarily desert, but just like lifeless, maybe, vegetation here and there trying to reach its roots down deep to get just a little morsel of moisture. Except once a year, here comes the flood. Or maybe it's just foreshadows. It's just been raining and storming for days and days and days, and upon the day of the flood, here's where it's not just wet and muddy and slimy and swamp like, but then the water levels start rising. The king says yachts go from becoming luxury items to becoming slums. Hell yeah. All lashed together and stuff. People have their pants rolled up. Um, and Listen, most role-playing games have some awkward rules on handling aquatic features in role-playing games. And but what a great time to pull those rules out, get some help from your from the friends and players in the group and go, okay, we're going to start using some aquatic rules here. Help me out with this, guys, and just try to navigate around how to use them and such, because it's kind of complicated, right? Like you have the idea of swimming and drowning and encumbrance, and can you see under the water or not? What about animals and monsters and things that are both aquatic or amphibian? I mean, how do you handle being not just drowning but being choked and drowned if a tentacled monster or a crocodile or something grabs a PC by a thigh and pulls them down under? And how do most special abilities from player characters work? Can you cast a spell? I would say Marco Tsude is like, I'd love to play in a water world. Yeah, I mean, actually, there are. Oh, Blue Planet is a very common, not common, classic role playing game. I think it's there's they had a Kickstarter for a second edition. If I'm not it, if I'm not mistaken, it's a sci-fi. Humanity goes to another an aquatic world and lives on it. The entire game is based around being underwater. But on the day of the flood, this is an opportunity to kind of use the rules in little ways. So it's not necessarily like everyone's underwater, but is there a difference between wading through knee deep water, through waist deep, through chest height? What about the flow of the water? So is it just the water level rising, or is it cascading? Like, are there waves and such? Could there be a fight on a docks or something, and the water level is rising as yet another white capped wave crashes over the docks, and everyone has to make deck save or strength saves to hold on or get swept into the ocean or something? You guys know I love all this kind of stuff. Yeah, Mark the is like, how has James Cameron not made a sequel to that movie? Yeah, The Abyss. Gaster Tuso, what's going on? Says, what if? What if you use the flood as a timer to gather resources to keep you and your fellow players alive? And after the flood comes, then time's up. You and your party has to survive on what you were able to retrieve. I love. Listen, that's I think time and timers are the unsold tool that is a cheap and effective way for us to really ramp up the tension, right? Like in role playing games, if without pressure, without a thing to push the players forward, like you got to make a decision now. What are you going to do now? And without that, it's just players twiddling their thumbs and they suffer from analysis paralysis. But when you have when the players know, listen, you have a certain amount of time to gather resources, whatever those resources may be, to gather any kind of MacGuffin, right? Persons, places, and things. Um, so maybe it's a combination of gathering the rich merchants and nobles that the players were hired to rescue because of this flood. It may also be a valuable resource, those mage stones I keep bringing up every once in a while that they have to gather. It could just simply be food and all kinds of nutrients, food, water, raw materials. It could be valuable items, rare pieces of artwork, or crown jewels or something. Individuals that were imprisoned in a dungeon deep down, and it's starting to flood down, you know, below the sewer line, and the flood waters are coming, and they have got to run down there and unlock the chains and open up the doors and get the people out and try to save them while holding off monstrous beasts that might be very far away from the region, living in the dark swamp or dangerous ocean or river or something, and it might be very many miles or kilometers away. But with the floods, they're able to crest the borders of the river, and now they can come into the town, and they're hungry. They want to breed. They want to expand their territory or whatever. Um, Kind of cool, yeah. And I wish role playing games, especially like D20 systems, had a better ability to overlay the dangers of drowning and water and such, because like it sharks and crocodiles are not just scary because of what they are, it's because of where they do their thing, right? They're apex predators because, alligators are going to grab you, snatch you onto that thigh, pull you underwater and start to spin. And incorporating that into a role-playing game, it can be kind of difficult, but to ramp up that fear, you got to have it. And I absolutely agree with you. Timers are really good. Gasper Two Soul goes on to say, perhaps maybe after the flood, you could find strange shanty towns built on towers or skyscrapers. Perhaps maybe you might even have cities residing on giant ships as a way to survive. All that jazz. Oh hell yeah! And here's the fun thing about using the day of the flood as a prompt. What if people are living in these places and there's no floodwater around until this day? Like, it would be strange for the player characters to look at the town and go, is is that a city built on like the top of, like, I don't know, 2 dozen sailing craft? That's really weird, and it's sitting in the middle of a bowl. Like, what's going on here? And then all of a sudden, on the day of the flood, when the floodwaters come and the city literally starts lifting off of the ground, because of the buoyancy and stuff, they go, ah, I get it. Yeah. Deadman says there's also the game Raft. You have to sail a raft on the sea, gathering components to upgrade the raft and food and water and fight off predators like sharks. Ooh, that's kind of cool. I mean, what a both simplistic and excellent thing to challenge the players to do. Hey, guess what? You have one day to survive. It's the day of the flood. Land is slowly going to disappear. The treetops are going to subside underneath the floodwaters for 24 hours, and then it'll just subside. But during that time, you gotta make a raft, find one, you know, gather things that are floating in the water, or dive off the raft to find more things to lash together. That's, I don't know, kind of cool. And you could make a random list, of things they might be able to find, or make some, force the players to have to make skill checks to find what's necessary. Oh, we need a sail. Oh, that means we're going to need like a sheets or blankets or tapestries or something. Like, I know where there's one, and it's in a castle that's below us. We're going to have to swim to go get to it, right? Um, and then, of course, all of the aquatic things that can just knock over a raft. Anything of substantial size is going to be able to swim underneath. And then you're talking about three-dimensional spaces. And what about casting those spells? I mean, can you cast a verbal spell? Probably, but maybe only once. And you might start drowning. Or what kind of defensive posture are aquatic creatures in if you're on a raft and it's below you? You know, Gaston says, I should also mention something that not many people think of. Flood doesn't just mean water. This could really be any sort of flood. Yep, any kind of liquid. Perhaps this could be a flood of lava after a tectonic shift. An eldritch rift opens, causing another universe to leak through, creating a strange flooding of reality, causing a mixture of extra dimensional entities with creatures from the main world. Absolutely. There's we can go a little dark, but there's a lot of fluids that could flood into a region. Um, I don't know. In your setting, there's always been an eternal battle of the gods, and I don't know, during the 30 days of the month of war or something, the gods do battle standing over top of the mountain range to the north. One of them sliced open its belly, spilling forth its intestines. Blood flows forth and flows down the mountainside, down into the region, and starts flooding. Like, you could go really arcane and fantastical if you want to. Lava, blood, oil. The temperature of the water is a thing too. Is it boiling hot from those same tectonic shifts? That's where you get like geysers and things like that. Is it frigid and cold with ice flows and that kind of thing? I don't know. But it would be kind of cool. Although pretty brutal, because if you fall into like frozen ice, you're talking about needing to swim, possibility of drowning, freezing to death as well, and getting paralyzed and frostbitten and stuff. Oh man. Well, anyway, our co-hosts have to say here. Mike Marin says, "I do like the idea of a subaquatic necropolis filled with undead that don't need to breathe. Yeah, they'd be able to trade mind resources to buoyant folk. Ooh, I like that. Yeah, because maybe like because of society, you know, a a very fast moving flood where people have to leave all of their things, escape the high ground, and now the players are like, oh man, we've got to deal with these, subaquatic folk, the submariners of the of the world, and it could be they have to deal with it. And then, like you mentioned, the undead. Yeah, they don't. They maybe they can't swim. They're not buoyant, but they sure can walk on the bottom of um of flooded regions for long times. Kind of scary to like have a raft or a boat or some other a dinghy or something, and you have like undead hands just reaching up underneath, trying to pull on a reach up onto the boat or something. Yeah. Ooh. But I love it. I love having to like uh get mind resources to deal with the buoyant folk because there might be a lot of stuff trapped down underwater that aquatic people were like, we don't need any of this. Pots and pans? What are we gonna do? Light a fire or something? No. Um, yeah, kind of cool. Deadman says there's also a board game based on the same concept of raft. I'm gonna look this up. Halo the Flood. Raft. Let's see, raft survival game. And we've got images. Nope, 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 nope. There we go. Okay, I got it. I'll bring it up in just a minute. Um, but yeah, I mean, being able, I mean, like, let's let's pick a random number, 8, and in order for the player characters to survive the day, especially if it's by surprise, they wake up from an encampment. Today is the day of the flood. There's people, you have caravanners and nomads that are running past the PCs like, it's the day of the flood. Get out of the way. We're going to high ground. And the PCs are like, ooh, shoot. And they realize their encampment, like, normally dry and stuff. The rangers like, yeah, I put the encampment in a perfect spot. But then they look down and there's water flowing past their ankles and such. And they're like, Ranger, you messed up. It's like, no, I didn't. Today's the day of the flood. Maybe it could be arcane, as Gaster Two Soul mentioned. It could be an arcane rift into the plane of water flooding the region or whatever. And or again, blame it on the druids, right? Says, listen, as much as I like jazz, I don't think we need to see a flood of that. Oh, stop. Yeah, I knew we'd end up back in the accursed desert somehow. Hey, listen. If it's an oldie, it's a goodie. Drowning in pure jazz. Does anybody else hate the potion of water breathing as much as I do? Oh yeah, because it's the easy button, right? Like, oh, I'm just going to drink a potion now. I'll never drown. Although, let's be honest, even if you have something like that, that doesn't allow. If I'm not mistaken, it doesn't give you the special ability to also navigate through water and be able to see and that kind of thing. So even if you could separate all these into its component parts, like we need to gather, I don't know, a special root or leaf or fruit that you eat, special chewing gum like Marine Boy. Anybody old enough to remember that? Special gum like Marine Boy that's able to you chew the gum and then you're able to breathe underwater, or maybe there are aquatic creatures like I don't know, starfish you put over your mouth and face, or jellyfish that have an air bubble inside. So you put jellyfish over your head, and you've got the tendrils hanging over your shoulders and stuff, so you can breathe underneath it. I don't know, maybe something like that. Yeah, Shai says it's a boring way to allow you to survive unsurvivable situations. Protection from fire too. It all seems like it. Yeah, the easy button, right? It's the to me, I just feel like it's the Staples easy button where it's basically like it's basically this idea of you have a difficulty that you need to be creative to avoid. And unfortunately, fifth edition and moving on, it seems like it's not about even dealing with those things any longer, right? It's uh, gathering food and resting and surviving the elements. All of that has basically been made into a non-issue. And then once you stack on top of that, being able to, immunity to fire and resistances to fire, being able to breathe water, being able to um, uh, uh, easily come by food and water by just being able to snap your fingers and create it. Having one of the worst spells, I think, is the tiny hut spell. It's like, oh, you create an impenetrable shield so that you can go to sleep behind it. And I'm like, isn't that like a second level spell or some bullshit like that? It's like, I guess this game isn't about survival. I guess it's about, I mean, it may claim to be, but it's got the unintended consequence of reducing the number of vectors of challenge in a role playing game down to one thing, and that is having more hit points and causing more hit points against your enemies. Gaster says, "What if we do a funny? What if the aquatic people find these sorts of strange equipment or items that may have survived while being submerged underwater, slowly mimicking a similar lifestyle to what it was like before the flood came?" I get it. Okay, maybe during a campaign you get to wear a diving suit and you find, well, 21st or 20th century civilization below the ocean, people going through the motions of frying things in frying pans while the fish float up off the frying pan or something. I don't know it, but the concept of the sunken city of Atlantis has been kind of wrapped into that the previously um, buoyant folk lived in a massive city that once sunk, so they have a relationship between both. And so, maybe, or the day of the flood, maybe there's a community that is, for some strange reason, protected by an air bubble. So the city state, everyone has to get into the city state walls. The floodwaters flood over the city, but within the city, it's an air bubble. They're protected, but you can't leave, not until the floodwaters go away. And there's never been anyone who's broken out of the doors and gone through the air bubble, but if you try, maybe the city might flood, and no one wants that to happen. Yep. Mm-mm-mm. Okay. M squared says, I guess I'd maybe prefer a one-handed magic item, something that can drop or break or intelligent enemies can steal, like a torch in darkness. Yes, in I don't think this is very new, but for some, the Shadow Dark Kickstarter, over $1 million. Let's see if I can find it. Shadow Dark Kickstarter. The Shadow Dark Kickstarter, over $1 million, and one of the main things about the Kickstarter was that, let's see if I can find how much it. Come on, 1,365,000 and change. So, um, and one of the main things about the that Kickstarter was that darkness, there are no player character abilities to see in the dark. And one of what I like to call vectors of challenge is that not only can you suffer from losing hit points, but there are monsters that will try to attack the players, whatever light source they have, their torches, to snatch the light source away so that the players become vulnerable. And that, like you just mentioned, about having like one-handed magic items, or basically like fragile items, one-use items, um, items that can be stolen or lost or broken, and things of that nature, is another vector of challenge. Much like, hey, you need to gather materials for this raft, like Deadman brought up. Well, if you have monsters that are chewing away at the raft, let's say the raft has, I don't know, 20 um, slats in it. logs tied together, and every time the creature attacks, it destroys one of them. Well, it's like hit points for your raft before everybody falls into the water and drowns, right? So, having being able to have challenges that can be overcome through creative thinking and working together and those kind of things, when you lose them, then those things don't become problems any longer, and therefore the challenges get narrowed down into one way of success or failure. And that's unfortunate. And I think using this prompt, the day of the flood, I think would allow the day of series allows us to kind of think outside the box, right? And if you're a dungeon master or a narrator, storyteller, flame tender, or whatever, and you want to challenge your players, and you go, you know what, I'd like to have something a little bit more environmental, a little bit more dynamic. Guess what? Even if it doesn't work and it's a little bit awkward or the players don't like it, it's only for a day, right? Conceptually, narratively, it's only for a day, unless you want to make it a little bit more permanent. So, and that's the whole point of using this. Mark Desune says, would drinking a potion of water breathing technically count as inhaling it? Yeah. Although, here's a question for you that there are no rules written down for. How would you handle consuming anything underwater, and would there be a limitation in it? Maybe not, but like, if you don't, unless you have water breathing, can you consume a good berry underwater, a potion of healing? And are you drinking, is every single potion something that is to be consumed, or are they like oils and elixirs and salves and tinctures and stews and effervescence and things of that nature, right? Like, a potion that must be applied like a lotion or a salve onto a wound, does that work underwater? I don't know. There's a lot of questions about that. And I believe back in the 90s, TSR put out a book about all the modifications to spells and equipment used underwater. And it was like, I don't know, 300 pages long or something. It's crazy. Just because of all the modifications to all the spells, all the spell casting, and every single spell was, like, I want to create a wall of fire underwater. I want to create a wall of stone. I want to create a wall of ice. And all of those, all three of those that I mentioned would have three completely diametrically opposed effects happen if you cast it under maybe 20 feet underwater, with the surface being 20 feet above you and the bottom of the lake being 20 feet below you or whatever. Gasper says, here's how I fix water breathing potion. No, you do not breathe water, but instead, after drinking the potion, you slowly begin to temporarily transform and gain gills. Okay. During this time, while the potion has been taken, you cannot be on land without having water around them to breathe in. Now, I like that. I like that a lot. Yep. Gain a major skill, lose a major one. Yep. I love give and take. The give and take rule for me is a easily adjustable one and a fair one. If you want to gain a benefit, you lose something, and I think that's perfect, right? Hey, you drink the potion of water breathing, fine, but you can't breathe air. It's like, oh, that's great. Or you could any ability to water breathe narratively can be modified the way you want. So if someone has a spell or maybe that potion or whatever, maybe it just creates a water bubble. Maybe you unstop the stopper and it goes whoop and it makes a water bubble under the water, and you put your head into the air bubble and that's it, right? In which case, sure, maybe it causes you to become buoyant, or you can swim and you have the air bubble, but anything that penetrates the air bubble, like gases or inks or things like that, will get into the air bubble and it's still the same way. Or you can cast verbal spells, but it only goes as far as the air bubble. It can't transfer further or something like that. Like, and then there's other things, like maybe if you pull the stopper, maybe there's like a weird jellyfish, starfish, or something inside of the bottle, and it's a potion of water breathing. You're like, boop, pop it, and all of a sudden the starfish comes out and wraps around the person's face, and that's how you breathe. and of course it could be ripped off or taken away or something. The gill issue might also affect spell casting. Like, can you talk normally, or do your spells flip so you can't verbalize normally in air, but you can verbalize normally underwater? I don't know. There's all kinds of stuff, and then you have to talk about like um, dark vision and being able to see underwater and particulates. Dark vision doesn't let you see through foliage and mud and things like that. Sediment that's been kicked up or ink that's been shot out, dispersed by a like a squid or squid like people or what have you. There's all kinds of stuff you have when it comes to aquatic adventuring, and and I feel like it's not done often because you can go down a rabbit hole of considering too many things. All right, you guys have gotten far too ahead of me. Vince says, reminds me a bit of Ariel and her fork. I know currently not the best topic, but the eyes are still interesting. Yeah. Yeah, Vince says in Egypt, the flood was actually a good thing, created fertile ground near the Nile. And that this prompt, the day of the flood, again, as as we normally think of flooding, it's a perfectly good reason for why maybe a narrow river breaks its banks and floods out. Again, with lots of aquatic and amphibious life being able to spread out from there. One of my coworkers, another letter carrier, retired to Thailand, and during the monsoon season, basically the flood season where he's at, the people get together to make these super long nets, and they stretch it across the river, maybe 3 times as long as the river is, because as the river floods, the fish will come downstream. They will come across the flat areas that are now becoming wider river lakes and things like that, and then the fish and crustaceans and things flow into the net, and you've got food. So there may be people who are easily adapted to the region, but the player characters are not, and so they may not have the skills necessary to survive. But the people were like, dude, why are you wearing metal armor? It's the day of the flood. Like, that's not smart. You might want to take that off, roll up your pants, and get to work with us. Yeah. The Shy Squad says, how about the special ability to fall in water and drown with no MacGuffins to save you? The special ability. It kind of turns into that, right? Like, yeah. Or yeah, or you do one of the weirder floods in history, yeah, like the London beer flood. There have been some very interesting ones in the past. Ooh, hmm. Let's see, Vince. Uh, through. Let's see if we. All right, okay. The Great Molasses. Okay, the Great Molasses Flood and 6 other strange disasters. Great Molasses Flood, beer and molasses floods among 5 weirder events in history. Ooh. Um, History Channel. Let's see what this says. I guess I'll share it out. The Great Molasses Flood. Why the Great Molasses Flood was so deadly. When a steel tank full of molasses ruptured in 1919, physics and neglect contributed to making the accident so horrific, leading to 21 deaths. And that would how how strange is reality. It was like a perfect, if bizarre, terrifying, and very sticky storm. Around lunchtime on the afternoon of January 15, 1919, a giant tank of molasses burst open in Boston's North End. More than 2 million gallons of thick liquid poured out like a tsunami wave, reaching speeds of up to 35 miles an hour. The molasses flooded streets, crushing buildings, and trapped horses in an event that ultimately killed 21 people and injured 150 more. The smell of molasses lingered for decades. 100 years later, analyses have pinpointed a handful of factors that combine to make the disaster so disastrous. Among them, flawed steel, safety oversights, fluctuating air temperatures, and the principles of fluid dynamics. Results were devastating. And let's see if we can share this out here because there's some pretty interesting images, and this is from the History Channel. And let's see, ba, ba, ba. And so here's an image, Boston Globe, Getty Images, and that's look at that devastation right there. And let me move down here. There's another image, people looking out. Man, how do you clean that up? Oof. Oops, sorry. Okay, let's see. Yeah, any clothing you wear is just going to be ruined. The wood, the steel. How do you gather that? Vehicles. Oof. All right, let's see if there's a little bit more here. Steel tank structures. Designed to hold 2.5 million gallons of liquid, it measured 50 feet tall, 90 feet in diameter, but its steel walls, which range from 0.67 inches at the bottom to 0.31 inches at the top, were too thin to support the weight of a full tank of molasses. Wow. Okay. All right. Okay. Wow. What a very strange thing. Vince says, how would you drink in general underwater? Because normally the liquid only comes out when air flows in. If you open a potion underwater, it would simply mix with the surrounding water. I wondered about that. If you opened up a potion underwater, would you open the stopper of a healing potion and then fish would swim through it and go, oh, this is great. Oh no, sorry about that, Gaster. Vince says you got it. The paradox that instantly makes the potion of water breathing less lame. So, oh, here's a limitation. You can only drink a potion of water breathing in air and a potion of air breathing underwater. So, so you can. So if you drank one, you couldn't take five with you, or you could, and you'd have to find a place with air to do it. Yeah. If gills would be physically correct, you would need to constantly swim to gain enough oxygen through them. That's how sharks have to do it. Constantly moving. True. Although my fish in my fish tank, my uh, kissing guamis or whatever, they sit still all the time. They shut their brains off and fall asleep at the bottom of the tank, which always scares me, but whatever. Mark Tasune says, if it hasn't been mentioned yet, there's also the poles to consider. Maybe ice flows can provide natural yet constantly shifting land masses. Um, in terms of like flooding and things like that. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Ooh, COVID. And from what I understand, there's um, COVID-19 and its variations are becoming just an annual thing. It's like the flu now. So, yep. Surely there must be a giant sponge in D&D. Well, yeah. I mean, maybe that's where gelatinous cubes came from, or instead of living trees, treants, maybe there are coral reefs and all that. I mean, there's great ways to flip aquatic and amphibious things and make them something else. Boulets, land sharks, they could swim. They could very easily swim, or they might be even far more dangerous than we think they are, being able to swim through rising floodwaters and such. Which, again, going back to the time pressure, you could measure time by literally measuring the water against the player characters. Like, okay, it's at your ankles, now it's at your calves, now it's at your knees, now it's at your thighs, now it's at your waist and chest and neck. And each time it goes up, it becomes that much more difficult to navigate and stuff. Yep. Molasses born sharks. Yeah. Gaspar is going off of Marco's idea. What if there's a dungeon in the iceberg? Also, thank you for the vibes. Yep. Yeah. Please feel better. Perhaps you could gain a special item from this iceberg to help make the flood easier. A pair of boots that could freeze the water, allowing you to walk on it, or a mace that allows you to freeze any enemies in place after getting hit by the weapon. And uh, here's something kind of funny. If you're deep underwater and you cast an ice related spell, does that mean the spell and anyone entrapped by it floats to the surface? Hmm. Um, or do like electrical and or ice like spells, do they become do they come out like a ray, or is the instant you create the spell just surround you in a big orb and make you float to the surface? I don't know. Um, Vince says there are actually some other weird floods in history too. I'm going to go back and look at some of the other ones too. Another flood that would also be really good: a flood of NyQuil and cough syrup. Oh no, the apothecary mixed with the with the distillery. Yeah. Mm-mm-mm. There's a video from Salmonella Academy called "History's Worst Non-Water Floods." Okay. Let's do that. Let's see. Let's because I gotta find some of these histories non water floods. Let's see. Um. Oh no, I don't want images. I want interactions. Let's see. I see it. Salmonella. I see the video. I'm trying to see Wikipedia. All right. Yeah. Got it. Got it. Got to get us. Got to get ourselves some. About to say Liquidpedia. All right. Here we go. Mm-mm-mm. All right, so let's see if we let's see some non-water floods and some ideas we can steal from this. Which, um, even if we come up to modern day, this I am not making fun of people who, because many people die in floods like this. So, but what we're doing is we're taking ideas from this and turning it into our tabletop role playing mind fuel. So, um, most non-water floods involve storage facilities suddenly releasing liquids or industrial retaining reservoirs releasing toxic waste. Storage facility incidents usually cover a small area but can be catastrophic in cities. For example, a molasses tank failure in 1919. So now in terms of role-playing games, especially fantasy and such, how many times damn near half our monsters are created by some air quotes accident because of some wizard? Well, they have to be experimenting with something. So this could be a possibility. I also brought up the fact that when it comes to a valuable resource, we as humanity tend to do some pretty outrageous things to manipulate the our environment. So, presuming at the bottom of a lake, there might be some very valuable resource. Let's go back to those mage stones that I brought up before, right? So, would humanity get together and dam up a river just to get the valuable mage stones in there? Of course we would. But damn it, there's a dam. It's a dam. So yeah, storage containers, maybe people, maybe that cult I had brought up earlier during some of our things about the cult that drinks the fluid that becomes oozes and jellies. Maybe those people were locked away into tanks. Let them die. Let them drink their stuff. Damn cultists or whatever. And those dangerous tanks of fluid might, maybe there just keeps being more and more of it, and passing it on from one generation to the next. So on our list here, we have the London beer flood. We're gonna go into that. The London beer flood was an accident at, I'm going to butcher this name, Meux, Moo and Co's Horseshoe Brewery on 17 October 1814. It took place when one of the 20-foot tall, 6.7 meter wooden vats of fermenting porter burst. The escaping liquid dislodged the valve of another vessel and destroyed several large barrels. And I'm sure it just went further and further. We got the Dublin Whiskey Fire. Dublin Whiskey Fire took place on 18th of June, 1875, in the Liberties area of Dublin. It lasted a single night, but killed 13 people and resulted in 6 million euros worth of damage in whiskey alone. People drank from the 6 inches deep river of whiskey that is said to have flowed as far. What? Wait, what? What?
For that, you'll have to check your network settings.
Oh no, no, not the network settings there. People drank from the 6-inch deep river of whiskey that is said to have flowed as far as the Coombe, Coombe. None of the fatalities suffered during the fire were due to smoke inhalation, burns, or any other form of direct contact with the fire itself. All of them were contributed to alcohol poisoning from drinking the undiluted whiskey that had been stored in casks. This alcohol was much more potent than whiskey offered at retail in bottles. Are you kidding me? That's darkly upsetting. Sorry. Okay, we got the molasses flood. We've got the Rockwood and Company shipping department fire of molten chocolate and butter. We got the Kingston fossil plant coal fly ash slurry spill, which is coal byproducts mixed with water. We've got the Ajka alumina plant accident, which is a mixture of bauxite residue mixed with water. We have the Mariana Dam disaster, which is tailings mixed with water. And then we have the Pepsi fruit juice flood, which are various juices. And okay, Pepsi fruit juice flood was a flood of 176,000 barrels of fruit and vegetable juices into the streets of Libyan, Russia, and the Don River, caused by the collapse of a PepsiCo warehouse. Wow, 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 wow. These are strange. Okay, chocolate, molten chocolate and butter. And then I'll get back to what you guys have to say. Rockwood Company and Shipping Department fire. On May 12, 1919, again 1919, all right, a fire broke out in a factory around 1 a.m. Materials and products stored on the second floor of the department are suspected to have caught fire by spontaneous combustion. The New York Fire Department were unable to save the building, but prevented the spread of the fire to the rest of the plant. Firefighting water washed a mixture of molten chocolate and butter out onto neighboring streets where it blocked storm drains and caused a flood sufficient to float a rowboat for 2 blocks. Local children crowded to the site to taste the mixture. The fire was extinguished by around 11 a.m. and caused damage in excess of $75,000, which in 2022 is equivalent to $1.265 million. Mm-mm-mm. Wow. Wow. Kind of cool. Okay. Those are some strange floods, and I love it. All right, going back to what you have to say. Oh shoot. Uh, Here we go. Mike Mayer says, going back to your point about vectors for challenge and different effects of dungeoneering underwater, you could have a resource of air provided by magical scuba tanks, etc. But the trade-off is that you can perform more actions, spells, and attacks in a turn by burning through your air reserves. Yeah, there's a side note. There is a game called Mothership, and I did a review of someone who produced a supplement for it called Dive. It's basically Mothership underwater. It was basically, and they used scuba tanks as a mechanism for a time schedule. So in the game, as you go through, you play the game, there are air tanks. And every 30 minutes of real game time, you lose an air tank. So as you're traveling, and it's a horror game, and as you're going through, for whatever reason, you lose access to one of your air tanks. The air escapes, there's a malfunction, it gets lost. The typical reasons for why you can't leave a place because of the horror that is going on. And so at a certain point, let's say there's 8 air tanks and there's 5 players, when you get to less than 5 tanks, somebody's not going to make it. And so it's kind of cool. I like your idea of just having a stat called air. You've got 27 points of air. Oh, okay. Well, you want to cast that spell. You want to make those 4 attacks per round. You're going to have to use 4 points of your air. And it's like, oh shoot, I could burn through that too fast as the barbarian, or smiting with my paladin. Oh, that's not good. Gelatin Bob cute pants. The End King says, I remember a guy playing a plague doctor, and he refluffed his potions to be syringes. Oh, reflavored them. Yeah, you could do that underwater, inject it into your diving suit. Yeah, yeah. Doesn't have to be a potion. Doesn't need to be a potion. It's just a placeholder name. You could describe it any way you want. Yeah. Your word refluff had me going down a little bit of a different different process there. Okay. On the giant sponge reef, I once had a lich whose phylactery was tossed into the ocean, so a magical reef formed from his ossified, constantly regenerating bodies, each drowning as they spawned. Ow! I like that. The Yen King says also oil tankers that now hold drinking water. That's a cool idea. Yeah, well, yeah, drinking water's probably been shipped from one place to another plenty of times. I will not be able to pronounce. Okay, damn it, you're going to make me do it. The deluge of diphenhydramine hydrobromide. Oh, I did it. I think I got it. Yeah, I put the proper emphasis on the correct syllable. Uh, Vince says in Dublin there was once a fire that let large barrels of alcohol burst, and so burning alcohol was flooding down the street. Yeah, non-water floods. Oh, now is okay. Maybe the day of the flood is a day strange as it may be. Maybe this community purposefully floods the streets with something like this: alcohol, chocolate, butter, molasses, whatever. I don't know. Maybe they purposefully flood this place with some kind of concoction that the PCs are like, what the hell are you doing? But everybody has fun doing it, especially if you could light it on fire or it had strange effects or something. Uh, maybe it's a thing that needs to be done in an extremely industrialized community that has to warn people because the people here know, and they have to release the sludge tanks or whatever of this acidic, poisonous, transformative, mutagenic, flesh-eating, corrosive, whatever material that flows through the streets or down canals or something. And the PCs are like, "What the hell are you doing?" As the people just put on plague masks and halfway protect themselves from the toxic fumes that are spilling out from the sludge gates or whatever. Yeah, why not? I'm sure there's some alchemists, mage-like alchemists out there doing some BS like that. Yeah, Gasper says some races I feel would have an easier time to adapt than others. While we usually use a human's perspective in these sorts of discussions, I want to move to other typical fantasy races. Yeah, dwarves already live in either incredibly high altitudes or even underground, so I feel the shift wouldn't be so bad. Okay, elves might learn to adapt their magic to allow buoyant cities, and orcs, well, someone's got to be a pirate. Yeah, although there's also been the dichotomy of dwarves may hold the high ground, but you often don't think of dwarves in swimming. They almost have like an antithesis to the aquatic form of themselves. If I guess if you attach different races to different elements, that dwarves would be more earth-like, elves might be more air or water related or something of that nature. So maybe dwarven holds down deep in the earth can get flooded, and they don't want that to happen. Like bursting an aquifer may cause a day of the flood. There could be a, a a a benefit from an elemental deity of water gives fresh water to a place where there isn't any. Like I'm going to say it, the accursed desert might have an oasis because of dedication to some kind of aquatic or elemental being, and but by not giving tithes or worshiping them or some offense or whatever, maybe this aquatic being dies or punishes them or something, and the water sweeps away on the day of the flood, and they're like, no, we we must appease the storm god to give us this water for it to allow it to last at least one more year or something. Vince says 13 people died because of alcohol poisoning because they drank this stuff straight from the street. That's what I'm saying, right? Yeah, yeah. You know that's exactly what it was saying. That people died people died from what was it, the whiskey Dublin whiskey fire, because they literally died from the alcohol poisoning, not from the fire itself, which adds just a whole nother problem onto a fire like that, because it's like that's that stuff can catch on. I mean, I'm sorry, the flood material can catch on fire, making it even that more difficult to navigate because you can't breathe it, and you don't want to be on its surface when it's burning, and you don't want to be underneath it. And so, yeah, yep, oh yeah, just said that. Yeah, the Dublin whiskey fire. Imagine a flood of magic potions. Ooh, yeah. Hey, a flood of potions of giant strength would have a whole lot of roided out people, whole lot of bro dudes and bro ladies and everything. Yeah. Um, yeah, I really did. Hey Vince, I really did. So I thought you might like those. Hell yeah. Hells yeah. Oh, that a flood of potions. Well, why wouldn't a alchemical, industrialized, magical construct using community on the day of the floods? They basically put out a warning horns, woo, and all the people were just, they're going about their business because they just about everybody works in factories and such, and maybe they do flood the streets with unfinished potions, because if you're going to do that, maybe you roll one die for the random potion that someone might ingest, and you roll more dice on the potion miscability table, because if you're going to bother drinking it, if you're dumb enough to get on your hands and knees and start slurping the stuff off the ground, then you also deserve to have the potion miscability table as well, right? By mixing two potions or more together can cause some serious side effects, either like permanency of a potion, or your stomach explodes, or something like that. Gaster's like, simple fix for this one: dwarves make submarines. Hell yeah, hell yeah. Why do the dwarves have those weird metal tanks in their dwarven hold? Oh, those aren't tanks; those are submarines. Yeah. Also, water elementals, would they just be invisible submerged? Ooh, would they be invisible? Yes? Question mark? Asterisk? Air quote? Oh man, yeah. Huge bonus on stealth checks. And okay, here's another question there, Mr. Desune. How do you know how many water elementals there are? Is it just one big one or six small ones? Yeah. Artificer dwarves ain't going to be held down by a lot of flooding. Hell yeah. Hey, their submarines only exist because they also hold the beer. They're just like, we're hey, there's a flood. All the dwarves are like, yes, we get to drink it all. Go, 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 go. Get in the seat. Oh shit. The flood could also be a defense measurement. Yep. Defensive measurement. Maybe there's some kind of invasion in the regular intervals, and the city simply floods the streets to get the invaders out. Hell yeah. Holy shit, yes. Why wouldn't you why would the dwarves live in a dwarven hold underneath a giant aquifer, or what's another term? Caldera, a volcano with a bowl, or a mountainous region with a bowl at the top that fills with fluid, and they live underneath it, and it's like that's the most dangerous place, and the dwarves are like, not to us. They blow a horn, and everyone's like, yep, get in the tanks. Just flood the place of all the dark elves rising up from the underdark, and they're like, this is our nuclear option, this is our aquatic option. Plot. Like, I wonder if this is going to show up. Cherry threaded. It didn't show up. Plot twist: the entire flood is just one giant planet devouring water elemental. Hmm. Yep. And this entire time, the players have been drinking it and sailing on top of it. Like, nope, it's technically just a giant water elemental that's just pissed off. Or maybe it's the natural, maybe this is a natural progression of the four elements in your world. The day of the flood is where the is day is the day of water, and there's a day of earth with earthquakes. There's a day of fire. There's a day of air with tornadoes. Maybe this is maybe in this part of the realm, the membrane between worlds is thin, and elemental balance it's like a release valve, but people live in a region where the release valve goes off, and it's like boom, the release valve comes, the waters flood through, and then it's just one day and it's gone. Yeah. Like the siege of the North Pole in Avatar The Last Airbender, they used the water that got through their city pretty effective. I don't know that. I have not consumed, I know, my geek cred sucks. I have not consumed Avatar The Last Airbender. Sorry. I know. Give me the finger. It's primordial, so I'll name it soup. Good soup. Yeah. Yeah, watch it now. Yes, you are correct. Dude, I have a list of things I need uh, uh um absorb in my lack of of geekdom, that it's so crazy. I have a deep knowledge of old stuff, but in material, yeah. Epic Fantasy Game Master says seaweed treants. Yeah, hell yeah. Seaweed treants, coral golems, shark orcs, and elf dolphins. No, okay. Are there sharks that get arms and legs like orcs? I mean, complete with like a spear and like the jewelry? Or is it orcs that have like a body like a shark, like from the waist down? Maybe it doesn't matter. If Vince like, take the day off. Yep, take the day off and binge it. Let's see. Also, Paracelius Paracellus elementals, earth, air, fire, water. Maybe not be the elementals we're talking about, like sea, stone, steam, lava. Yeah. Sea, stones. Sea, stone, steam, lava, ooze, mist, um, uh, um, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Shark like orcs, a natural aquatic race of thug life greenskins. Hell yeah. Yeah, I'm from that 6 fathoms deep, yo. What's up? Living aquatic thug life. Like, yeah. Hell yeah. Ben says, what channel is this in the Discord? I'm not certain. Epic Fantasy Game Master. Do you have a channel there, Epic Fantasy Game Master? I'm gonna look you up. Anyway, there we go. I can't find you. Well, at least not right now. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. What's go? Okay. Oh, you guys are in the Discord. Main event. Feeling your. I'm missing something. Here we go. Yeah, epic fantasies. Maybe it's just a giant wave. There's any number of reasons, and that's the whole point of having this, right? Like, what is the reason? Is this just a massive wave that comes by, like, geologically through arcane manners or something, that happens to sweep through one huge ass giant wave on this day? Or maybe it's just a very dry region where the huge savanna or something floods, and this is the day of the floods or something. Ha ha, surfer class. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's surfing. We don't just use shields for defense anymore, right? Um, but maybe it's been like again, it's been days or weeks, hell, months of rain and storms, and today is the day. Or maybe the maybe the flood doesn't come from anywhere but underneath the ground. Maybe the ground just starts to get wet and moist, and the people are like, oh no, within 3 days hence, it'll be the day of the flood. And PCs are like, what are you talking about? It's just swampy. And the waters just keep rising and rising and rising. And like I mentioned at the beginning, maybe the people who have a boat or a dinghy or some kind of aquatic vessel strapped to the top of their homes, they're like, up, time to scale up our stilt-like homes, stilt-like skyscraper homes, get into the boat. All right, everybody get in. And then the water level just rises. They pull the straps and they just float away until they can come back to their homes that have, you know, all their stuff has been ruined and whatnot. Ha! Now I want to create a surfer druid with a wave elemental companion. Yeah. Could be like Game of Thrones winter. They have a flood instead, yeah, that wipes away. Um, to foreshadow this event, it's possible to tell the players that the region kind of doesn't have as much history as they think it does, and that seems a bit odd. And the players would go thinking to themselves like why are there no like uh ancient structures that we think of or ancient histories, but maybe it all keeps getting washed away once every 12 years because of the day of the flood comes through. But again, or the opposite, like the aquatic folk gather things and steal things, keep things for themselves from all the stuff left by the buoyant people when the flood comes through. And that's why they live and navigate in these regions, and they have something to trade with people. Uh, Heirlooms, memories, maybe not necessarily value in terms of gold piece value, but maybe just value in terms of importance and such. So, but anyway, guys, we've come to the end. I want to thank you guys for being here. If you're going to be here this long, do the doobly doo. You know, like, share, subscribe, give me the finger, get notified, ring the bell, do all the stuff, the whole bullshit call to action, and everything. If you want to be part of the show, we've gone very long with this. We've got another 2.5 weeks of day of. On the channel, just look at the homepage of the channel. You'll see what's come before and what's come after. I will update the, uh, I'll update the podcast so that all of these will be incorporated in it. If you guys have any great ideas that haven't already been done, please put them anywhere in the video, down below, in the chat or something about great prompts. Please make the prompt very general. 1 to 2 word prompts that we can expand on, and just use that for our mind fuel that we always do. Monday the sequel, Electric Boogaloo. Yeah. All right, guys. You guys have a great one. I will see you later. And please, top off on that mind fuel. Have a great day, and I hope you have great gaming. Peace.